sign it now?
I'm good, how are you doing?
Hey, sir.
Hold on.
I didn't listen to her.
You don't have this water table. I kind of forget. And then I get home.
Three. Two X's or three?
Good.
When you're ready, I'm ready.
You run the route right. There's no upside to quitting.
So before we start, if everyone could just silence their phones. There's been a lot of phone disruption for the council members. So good evening. I'd like to call this September 23rd, 2024 Borough Council meeting to order. Will the clerk please read the open public meeting statement?
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided as required under Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, specifying the time, date, and location by posting a copy of the notice on the municipal building, municipal website, and providing a copy of the annual notice schedule to the official newspapers of the borough, and is on file in the clerk's office.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Here.
Councilman Collins.
Here.
Councilman Menko.
Here.
Councilman Poznanski.
Here.
Councilman Potter.
Here.
Councilman Zambrana.
Here.
Mayor Murray.
Present.
Attorney Peter Vignolo.
Present.
Borough Engineer Mike McClellan.
Here.
Borough Administrator Fred Carr.
Present.
Borough Clerk Monica Orlando. Present.
Everyone please stand for a moment of silence, which will be followed by a salute of the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a couple presentations. I'd like to first call up Assemblyman Stanley and Assemblyman Karabinchek for your presentation, please.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, council members. It's a pleasure for both of us to be here tonight to come before this body to tell you that, during this year's budget, we were able to secure $200,000 for the borough to help secure a new fire engine for the volunteer firefighters here in town. So it was a extremely hard-fought time because of the budget constraint that we had in the state, but we were able to secure it. And I'd like to thank Councilman Potter, for bringing this to my attention, and then we worked as a team to make sure that we got this through. You want to say some words?
If I can.
Sure.
Mayor, thank you so much, and council people so much. This is so important for the town and also for the first responders, which is so important to everybody who lives here every single day of their lives in this great town. This is what it's about. It's about networking. It's about asking for stuff that we can do for you. And as the Assemblyman said, this was a little bit of a rough fight, but we prevailed, and we're so happy to be here presenting you this money.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Just one more thing before we head off. Just want to let you know, last couple of years we've been doing a lot of the MVC mobile units all, throughout our district, and we're happy to say that we're bringing it back again to Milltown, and it's coming here on October the 17th at the Senior Center. So pretty soon we'll be putting that out too, and the residents will be able to sign up for that coming up.
And we will make sure that's on the borough website
Yep.
as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Assemblyman.
The Borough Auditor for financial year 2023 audit.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. I'm Rob Provost, partner at PKF Hunter Davies. My colleague Anthony Caprio is joining us. He's the lead supervisor in engagement. I'm going to keep this fairly brief. Figure I'll go over some of the financial highlights. Anthony's going to go over some things in the audit process, just briefly explain what's involved in pretty much a 4 to 5 week process. Before we even start, I really wanted to say thank you to Fred and his team just for providing everything in a difficult year, trying to get us and we're really thankful for that, Fred, so thank you. So I'm going to start with some of the financial highlights. Overall, it was a very stable year. So the current fund balance, I'm just going to touch briefly on your operating funds. So the current fund balance decreased roughly around $1 million from 2.1 million to roughly 1.1 million. But keep in mind, there's a very large interfund advance, which for $1.8 million, which will be returned in '24 if it hasn't done already. So the $1.8 million is roughly a timing difference. And without that interfund advance, you actually would have generated more revenue in '23 than '22. So your current fund, I think, is in really, really good standing. The water sewer utility fund remained relatively flat from 264,000 in fund balance to 244. But one thing that's really imperative to keep in mind is all the COVID funds that we're going through there have now expired. You know, there's 365,000 that was recognized in revenue, which you no longer will see that in the future. And without that in '23, you know, the fund would have ran a deficit. So I think you guys were really prudent and smart how you kind of used some of your COVID ARP funds, which was allowable. And so that obviously kept the fund stable for '23. Electric utility operating funds, really stable. You know, decreased 160,000, but from 1,386,000 to 1 million, basically 1.2 million. So, you know, that fund has always been doing, you know, fairly flat. It goes through the last few years, but so overall, I think the financials are in really good shape. Like I said, the water sewer fund had that, you know, thankfully it won last year of the R funds, you know, to keep that fund afloat. But you know, other than that, I mean, I think you guys are doing a really, really great job. You know, really good internal controls, compliance. You know, we did a single audit this year being '23 on both the federal and state single audit, and we had no findings in that at all. We're happy to report that. We did have 2 findings in a regular borough audit, and that was just over expenditures in the water, sewer, and the electric operating funds. We're only around $12,000 collectively, but, you know, just for compliance, if, you know, at year end, the last 2 months, it could have some transfers maybe to, you know, just avoid those over expenditures. And the last funding we had was on compensated absences. We just had a tough time trying to drill down to the user-friendly budget, get the supporting documentation. But that's not something that really materially impacts the financial statements or anything like that. But it is a footnote disclosure for us, and we just couldn't get the support to back up the number that was in the budget. But like I said, those are by all means not material items at all, and you guys really, really do a great job overall. So you should be proud of that. And you know, the regular borough audit, you have an unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion you can get. So even with those 2 small findings, you guys are still looking really, really good. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anthony Caprio just to touch on some of the things that go actually into the audit process.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah, I'll make this quick as well. So every year we do our general audit control testing. This includes going through the narratives, making sure we have a good understanding of what the controls in place in the borough are, as well as doing and performing walkthroughs of individual samples. These areas include payroll, tax receipts, cash disbursements, and the various utilities. This year, we rotated our full test of controls under the cash disbursement section, which included bids and quotes testing, tax receipts, and cash receipts. Tax and cash receipts had no issues regarding any of the receipts that were coming in. We were able to recalculate for tax the payments and interest as applicable. The cash disbursements, the bid and quote testing we did, we had 1 missing PO, quote, and invoice, and a few encumbered stating issues, but they weren't material at all, just making sure that the availability of funds prior to those purchases were made. Every year we do third-party confirmations. We received no issues with those and tying back to the borough reports. And as Rob mentioned, we performed a state and federal single audit. Under the state, we tested the New Jersey DCA Water Infrastructure Improvement Grant. And federal single audit, we tested the American Rescue Plan. Again, no issues were found in those. We also test a few outside departments. These include court, animal control, construction code, clerk, registrar, vital statistics, recreation, and LoSAP. Again, flying colors, there was no issues in any of those areas. So we thank you guys very much for all the help. And again, Fred, thank you for that.
Unless you guys have any other questions, that's, the kind of the highlights that we had for you guys tonight.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Just one. Sure. Last year, when you were here presenting the audit, noticing a decrease between the 2021 and 2022 surplus in the water sewer fund, I had asked if you thought a rate increase was pending. And now tonight, I hear you mention that if not for the ARA funds, or more commonly known to as the COVID money,
Yes.
that the water and sewer budget would have been underwater.
That's
And not had
accurate.
enough.
Yeah, you would have had roughly maybe $100,000 deficit, something in that ballpark.
It's just better sometimes for the public to
Yeah.
hear it from our professionals than just me.
Yeah, I know, it's, yeah, it would have been 120,000 deficit.
So what you're saying is we shouldn't have used those funds to cover that deficit?
No, I think that was a very, very smart, prudent decision that
Thank you.
that the borough did. Very, very intelligent.
So you recommend utilizing non-recurring revenue for recurring costs?
Well, in that particular year, at least the funds were there. Going in the future,
So it's
one
going
of
to
those
help us
things.
plan ahead for this year?
Yeah, it's the fortunate thing is, without rate increases, there's no way the fund could really sustain profit or even break even.
You could repeat that one if you like to.
I know nobody likes to hear it, trust me, myself included, but, that's the reality when you look at the numbers. And, you look at the rising costs. And even not just the utility side, but health benefits, everything is just, on the state side, you went years from being flat to all of a sudden 1 year, like, oh, we're going to raise them 18 to 22%. It's just astronomical. It's everything costs just a fortune. And, the borough is no different.
Thank you for your insight.
I got a question for you. Do you think it was a prudent decision, knowing that the rates went up in 2023 by about 3.5%, and not to raise it last year?
Well, it's obviously, I think raising rates is always probably a good decision. To do it gradually, other than just one big impactful, year. I think that's what we always try to recommend. Those are managerial decisions, not necessarily auditor decisions, but that's what we always recommend. We know it's not an easy thing, obviously, to do that. Just when you look at the numbers, though, it's got to happen. And then, again, that's why we say, small increases, incremental increases, so that, the residents don't feel the impact as much in any given year or anything like that. Just, nobody wants that.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you,
All right.
gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
So we have two resolutions to approve for that, and then we're going to move on with the rest. So will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-259 by title?
Certifying review of the fiscal year 2023 municipal audit.
May I have a motion?
Move that the resolution be adopted.
Second. I have a motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. Is there any discussion? No? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-260 by title, please?
Approving the corrective action plan for the 2023 municipal audit.
You heard the reading of this resolution. What is your pleasure?
Move that the resolution be adopted.
Second.
I have a motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Collins. Is there any discussion? No. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Okay. We have a presentation by Brian for Public Power Association.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Brian Vida. I'm the Executive Director of the Public Power Association of New Jersey. The PPA&J provides wholesale electric procurement services to 9 municipal electric systems in the state of New Jersey, as well as the state's-only electric cooperative. Borough of Milltown is one of those 9 municipalities that we provide services to. I'm going to give a brief presentation starting basically like Electricity 101, and then I'll move into a little more detail on items specific to Milltown. So Electricity 101, so the movement of electricity consists of 3 primary segments: generation, where the electricity is produced; transmission, which moves the power over long distances via high voltage power lines; and distribution, which the borough provides, where they move power over shorter distances to the end users, homes, businesses, and industrial sites. The overview of an electric system, so you see on the left here, left-hand side, the generation. That is controlled by an entity, the dispatch is controlled by an entity called PJM. PJM used to stand for Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, but it has since expanded. The borough is a member of PJM. That's, you get a PJM bill, weekly PJM bill, monthly PJM bill. It details basically all the costs to run an electric grid. The PJM is in essence the electric grid. The next is the transmission network. That is controlled by PSE&G. So they own all the transmission lines, the high voltage transmission lines that are used to deliver the power to the Milltown distribution system. And then the third item is the distribution network, which is owned and operated by the Borough of Milltown. So PJM, as I mentioned, they're really the grid. They're a transmission organization, regional transmission organization, and they coordinate the movement of wholesale electricity. I think there's 13 states and 65 million people that they impact. And I'll give you there's 3 major components to your wholesale electric bill at the Borough of Milltown: energy, transmission, and capacity. Energy is the actual commodity. Just like you buy natural gas as a commodity, electricity, energy, that's the commodity. And you can either buy it under a fixed cost contract, long-term deals with multiple parties, which that's what the borough does, or you could do it floating and be subjected to hourly spot market prices in PJM. A lot more volatility, a lot more risk in that. So boroughs tend to use the long-term contracts and fix their costs. Second component is transmission, and as I mentioned, that's the high voltage lines that PSE&G owns and controls. That cost, and I'll show you a little bit later, has been creeping up significantly over the last several years. And then the third component is capacity. Capacity is basically iron in the ground, for lack of a better term. All the generators that are built to reliably supply electricity to the grid. Milltown's historical wholesale power costs. So you can see here, 65% of your costs were in the past made up of transmission and capacity. That was 55% was transmission, 10% was capacity, and 34% of your bill was made up of the energy component, the commodity component. Transmission, the way it's calculated is it's based on Milltown's meter reads, 5 meter reads that are coincident with the PSE&G system. So whenever PSE&G hits its 5 highest meter reads, that's what determines Milltown's obligation for transmission. Capacity is very similar. However, it's based on the 5 meter reads of the PJM, the entire PJM grid, and what Milltown's meter reads are during those 5 highest hours in PJM. So in essence, 65% of your costs are they're based on 10 critical hours. It's the 5 hours for transmission and 5 hours for capacity. And then, as I mentioned, the other 34% of the energy, we buy multi-year energy supply deals from several suppliers based on your historical consumption, which amounts to about 98%. So 98% of the 34% is fixed, in essence, for several years, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Starting June 1 in 2025, we're going to see a significant increase in the capacity component. You're going to move from the 65% to now 74% of your electric costs are going to be based on these 10 critical hours. So what that's going to amount to is a 33% increase in the costs to the borough. Your wholesale electric bill is going to go up by 33% starting June 1 in 2025. I'll talk a little bit about the commodity. So as I mentioned, the PPA&J members, they purchased fixed cost wholesale energy from third-party suppliers through a special bidding procedure authorized by statute 4011-5. And there are some of the suppliers that we buy from: PSEG, Exelon, NextEra, BP. And we also buy a small portion of our power from a hydroelectric dam up in New York. This is an example of when we go out for an RFP, we bundle the load together, we aggregate it together with several other municipalities, Milltown, South River, Park Ridge. And when we go out for an aggregated amount, we usually do that for about 3 times per year, depending on what market conditions indicate. This is a chart of what PJM energy prices look like. So you can see they were sometime around they were about $25 or 2.5 cents per kilowatt hour, back in 2019. Now they're in the 50s. When we made our purchases for Milltown for this commodity, we bought it pretty much at the low, as you can see, back in 2019. We locked in 2023 through 2029, in the mid-20s, mid to high 20s. And if we were to purchase that same block of power today, we'd be in the mid-50s, low to mid-50s. Transmission. So as I mentioned before, Milltown's transmission obligation is based on meter reads of the 5 highest hours on the local transmission system. And I won't talk much about this. I'll show you a chart next. But one thing to keep in mind is it's going to keep increasing. The last bullet point there, the NJBPU just awarded $1.1 billion in round 1 of the offshore wind transmission. And a second award is coming probably in Q4 2024. So that $1.1 billion is going to be spread across everyone in the state. So here's a chart of what transmission costs look like. You guys are in the PSE&G zone, which is the gray bar, which is the highest. As a matter of fact, the PSE&G transmission rates are the highest in all of PJM. You'll see there it's about $180,000 per megawatt year, as opposed to JCPL, which is like $30,000 per megawatt year. So right down the road, it's 3 times the cost right down the road compared to PSE&G and JCPL. The next component is PJM's capacity market. So PJM runs a capacity market called RPM. It's called the Reliability Pricing Model. And the way I kind of explain capacity, it's akin to a shopping mall building a parking lot that can hold enough parking spaces for their highest demand. Black Friday, when they have all the shoppers out, they have to have enough parking for everybody. Just like PJM, they have to have enough power plants ready to serve reliable energy when peaks occur and when the grid needs it at all times. So PJM just recently ran a capacity market. The capacity market goes from June 1 through May 30th. And as I mentioned before, it's based on Milltown's highest, Milltown's meter reads based on PJM's 5 highest coincident peaks. So PJM just ran a capacity auction just in June. And as you can see here, capacity prices went from $56 to $270 a megawatt day. So it's unprecedented. Has never seen a spike like that before. And PJM, as long as several entities have noted that the capacity price spikes are due to fossil power plant retirements, increased load, and also new market roles. So what we're seeing is a pretty significant supply-demand imbalance in the PJM market. Demand is increasing while supply is decreasing. Here's just a quick synopsis of what happened between 2022 and 2025. So you can see coal, there were 45,000 megawatts offered in 2022, only 30,000 in 2025. Natural gas went down from 85,000 to 66,000. Nuclear stayed flat. Solar went down a little bit, hydro went down a little bit, and wind stayed flat. So primarily, the supply side is seeing a lot less fossil generation offering to supply capacity in the market. Here's a chart of capacity prices. So you can see, it's kind of been up and down, but this most recent price spike is kind of unprecedented. We've never seen prices like that in the PJM market before. Here's a depiction of Milltown's capacity costs. So you can see in 2024, 2025, Milltown had a capacity cost of $301,000. Starting in June 1 of 2025, it's going to increase to $1.4 million. That's just the market cleared at $270 versus $57. So you're going to see about a 1.1 million increase starting June 1 of 2025 through May 30th of 2026. Now, Morgan Stanley just came out with a forecast for 2026, starting June 1, 2026 through 2027, and they said capacity prices could reach $695 per megawatt day. If that happens, if that comes to fruition, then Milltown's capacity cost will go up to $3.8 million from $300,000 today, if that forecast holds true. I don't think it's going to hold that high, but I think there's definitely going to be an increase because the supply-demand imbalance for generation and demand has not abated at all. So the question is, what can you do to mitigate some of these increase in costs? So the energy component, we have fixed pretty much out through 2029. So that 74%, the capacity and transmission, the only way to mitigate those is to manage your peaks. The only way really to do that is with some type of behind-the-meter generation. You got a battery, solar, whatever it may be, to try to, mitigate some of the peaks. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. Any questions from anyone?
So, as I understand it, thank you for that. I think at least the people who are watching are probably confused.
I'm sure they are.
Know that bad news is on the horizon. I'll get into the capacity issue, but we've seen, you mentioned that we've seen from 2019 at 2.5 cents a kilowatt hour to now 50 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's a 25 times or 20 times increase in the last 5 years.
Yes.
And even though we were on a fixed cost, that trend seemed to be consistent, that we were heading upwards.
Yes. Yes.
And the borough's representative who addresses PJM or is our liaison is our business administrator.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. Yes, typically, most municipal electric utilities, the BA is the representative for PPA&J.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Well, your chart, are you showing that we could actually be paying 10 times what we're paying now?
Correct, yes. Starting June 1 of 2026.
Holy cow.
Yes.
How are we supposed
correct.
to do that? How are seniors, I'm not.
No, I know, that's
But
the
how
marketplace.
How are people supposed to pay their bills?
Yes.
And honestly, what is the genesis of this huge increase? I mean,
Yes.
I appreciate your calmly telling us. How can this happen?
So what's happening, as I mentioned, we're seeing the supply-demand imbalance where generation is retiring, fossil generation in particular. That gets the most weighting as far as reliability goes. They operate 94, 95% of the time. So they are retiring at a fast clip, and they're not being replaced fast enough. Renewable is in the queue to replace the fossil generation, but it's not being built fast enough, nor is it being built to enough scale.
Well, you're saying fossil. It's
Yeah.
not actually fossil fuels. But
Yeah, it's nuclear, coal and natural gas.
Right. How come things haven't been done before now? It's now going to be an emergency?
Yes.
And like I said, I appreciate you telling us calmly, but this is terrible, especially
Yes.
for like in our town and every town.
Yes.
Seniors and say like someone who's a single person living in a home.
Absolutely.
This is outrageous and it shouldn't happen.
It absolutely is, and as I mentioned, this is going to impact 65 million people in the
And it shouldn't
PJM
happen.
market. And a lot of people saw it coming, and they sounded the alarm. And one of the problems, it's a market. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's a market. So supply didn't respond because prices were always nice and flat. You saw it with some of those charts, capacity chart, it was kind of ticking down a little bit. So there wasn't an incentive for generation to come in and build at the scale that was needed.
Well, our politicians in Washington are sleeping then.
Can I ask what, in your opinion, has led to the increase in consumption or demand over
Yes.
the last few years that we weren't able to offset the decrease in production
Yes.
as a result of those other plants shutting down? But obviously, it's coupled with a decrease in supply as well as an increase in demand. So
Yes, the increase in demand has been primarily due to data centers. They're building a lot of data centers everywhere across basically the nation. and secondarily, electric vehicles and electrification of homes. So, electrifying everything, data centers that are popping up everywhere. I think we've seen probably a 10% increase in demand, and, you're looking at a 30 or 40% decrease in supply, and, Economics 101 tells you, when you see that imbalance shift, it's only going to result in exorbitant costs for everyone.
Has there been legislation that has also led to this? I know at
Yes.
one point we had some folks come in here saying that any new development, we should require them to have electric stoves and electric heat as opposed to any sort of natural gas boilers or using a natural gas stove. Has that legislation furthered the increase?
Yeah, I mean, that's furthered the
Demand for
demand, yes, demand for electric has gone up because of public policy, yes.
And Councilman, a decrease in the use of fossil fuels, if we have a vision of an America where we don't rely on fossil fuels because it's polluting the environment and destroying the ozone and producing emissions that are increasing global warming, and our vision federally and on statewide is to decrease our reliance of fossil fuels and those good reasons, but the math on one side, when you get to that point where we're all solar dependent or all wind dependent, it has to be, at the same level. This builds up over here while this decreases over here. And what you have now, that there's been a plummeting of the gas and of those fossil fuel plants into the system, but this is not caught up.
In order to basically be kinder and gentler.
Correct,
to the-
absolutely. I mean,
and-
if you
and
look
to
at
start thinking about
we've had a couple of major wind farms that have failed significantly off the coast of Jersey, which, we in Jersey hoped would offset this. It's not going to happen to make up for that loss. And the loss is now, as Brian says, it's economics 101. It's supply and demand.
But I also heard that, is it the Cape Wind project that you mentioned, was $1.1 billion?
No, the one that Mr. Carr is referring to,
Okay.
Off the coast of New Jersey. So the state is going ahead to build the transmission before, you have to have the transmission in place before they would build the wind farms. Some are, so I think there was 4 projects that have been awarded. I think 2 of them have been canceled, 2 of them are still going forward. So they want to have the infrastructure in place prior to anyone actually, putting a shovel in the ocean to get the wind farms built. And there's going to be round 2 of that where the state's going to award a second award for offshore wind transmission.
But the $1.1 billion you
what I
referenced,
said.
that winds up falling on the shoulders of
Ratepayers.
Every ratepayer in the state pays for it.
everybody, all PSE&G
Everybody.
customers, not just the 9 communities in the.
Yes, everyone in the state pays for that.
So basically, we're paying for $1 billion for something that's not working.
That hasn't been built yet,
So it's
I
like a
think
tax.
they're going to supposedly build it, but, whether it comes to
The
fruition
last
or not.
company pulled out.
Yeah, 2 of the companies pulled out, Ørsted pulled out, but I still think there's 2 that are going forward.
Is there a silver lining to this?
I wish there was.
I didn't think
I wish there was, and, I'm not as pessimistic as the Morgan Stanley forecast is, that, looking at a 10-time
But
increase
they
or
may be
something.
right.
But if it falls somewhere in between that, it's unavoidable.
Right.
As I mentioned, the only way as of now to avoid these increases is to do something with behind-the-meter generation. That's the only option right now that's available to everyone.
Would be the fossil fuel generation.
No, if you put something in the town to reduce your peaks, and whatever the fuel may be, whether it's fossil fuel, whether it's battery, whether it's solar, whatever it may be, you put that in the town and it reduces your peak loads, your contribution to those 5 hours, and that's what you're billed on at PJM, then that'll in turn reduce your costs.
What do you think that would cost?
I mean, it all depends on which
Battery power.
yeah, which battery power. I mean, I'll kind of let the AEP folks, on-site partners, talk more about that. 'cause
So
they're
out
more
of out of the other 9 municipalities, how does Milltown's increase fare comparatively?
So it's across the board, it's very similar to everyone across the board because it's based on what your contribution is. So it's proportionate, basically, you know, your increase is going to be the same as South Rivers or Park Ridge's or Butler's. It's going to be proportionate.
And
what are
the
they doing?
June 2025, those numbers are already set in
They're
stone.
set, yes, they're fixed.
So if we don't amend our electric rates now, we're going to look at not having enough money, $1,119,000 in the bank.
Yeah,
pay
the
those
increase is
bills.
going to be from today till June 1st, or from, let's say, June 1 of 2024 through June 1 of 2025, it's going to be an additional 1.1 million. Yes, it's going to start in June and then go through May, so yes.
And are any other municipalities doing something, or have they been proactive to help offset this or better accept this when it comes to their doorstep?
Yeah, so others have put in some behind-the-meter generation. Others are diligently looking at it. But for the most part, I believe everyone is probably looking at a rate increase. And I've seen actually Maryland, states everywhere within the PJM territory, they're all talking about, 30 to 40% rate increases across the board for everybody, the 65 million people that are served by PJM.
I have 2 questions. One's easier to answer than the other.
Okay.
So will Unit 1 at 3 Mile Island going back online, will that help us at all?
So the way the structure for that is working is they're going to be specifically tied to a Microsoft data centers. So Microsoft entered into well, they haven't done it yet, but it's preliminary, a 20-year contract, and all of that 3 Mile Island output is going directly to Microsoft to serve their data centers.
Wow.
So they're buying all of it. It's like, I think, and don't quote me, but it was like a $19 billion deal or something like that all that output is going over 20 years to Microsoft.
Second one, this one's a little bit more difficult. So when you mentioned about the battery system and the peak, lowering the peak demands, peak loads, how is that helping offset? Like, we know South River had a battery project. How is that helping the municipalities lower that peak demand for the purchase when it comes time to purchase it? And what kind of savings is South River seeing from that peak?
So I don't know about the exact dollar value that South River's saving. It's significant. I can tell you that much. It's fairly significant.
Okay.
Economics have changed maybe a little bit from when South River did their first battery. So it is fairly significant, and there is value in these battery projects depending on how much infrastructure you have to put in place. And the way it works is, so as I mentioned, the 5 peaks, whenever your 5 peaks are, so for instance, let's just say you guys are a 14 megawatt peak, you put in a 10 megawatt battery, when PJM goes to determine what your peak contribution is, and if the battery was operating at 10 megawatts, you would only be looked at as 4 megawatts instead of 14. So, it's that one chart I showed you, that was spiked up, that $270 a megawatt day, it would be your obligation times that. Everybody pays that fixed rate, but the calculus is, what your contribution is to get to your full cost. So it would significantly help.
So something also, and I know we talked about this right before the meeting started, was, our solar ordinance right now charges significantly, or gives back less money than what we charge the resident for electricity, because we make our money as a town on consumption, not on the fixed fee for operating the system, or the $1 million plus that we take from electric every year to balance the budget. So if we can increase the incentive for putting solar in and offer more reasonable trade-off between what they purchase and then if they're over-generating what they get back, that would further help us decrease our peak as well.
Correct. So technically when peaks usually occur, it's 95 degrees out, sun shining, that's usually, across the system. So of course, a solar is going to be operating during those peak times, and that will in turn look like less demand from Milltown, which will drop your calculus, your peak load. So yes, that could absolutely help.
And then the last question that I have was, we were looking at $119,000, or $1,119,000 increase, right?
Yes.
So if I divide that number by the 3,000 electric meters in town, that means every meter, or every customer with a meter, would essentially be paying another $373 per year.
Yeah.
If it was split out evenly.
Correct. And that's kind of what I calculated. I calculated based on your usage, roughly it's 3 cents per kilowatt hour per customer, which calculates around, if an average customer uses $1,000 or 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, that's what you're talking in that ballpark,
Yep.
$300 to $400 increase for
Yeah,
every customer per
Which,
year.
that simple math comes out to around $31 and change
A month.
per month.
Correct, yeah, that's pretty accurate to what I calculated.
And that'll start in June?
That'll start June 1.
How does this affect electric grids and push for electric vehicles? Massive push, especially in New Jersey coming next decade?
Yeah, so if the numbers of electric vehicles multiply as they're expected to in the state, that's going to absolutely push your contribution up, to the 5 peaks, which is going to raise your obligation, which is going to cost even more money.
Exponentially?
It could, yes, it could, depending on, how many electric vehicles are come onto the system.
It's a scary situation.
Yeah, it's not a great situation, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Anybody else?
So if we had a whole bunch of electric charging stations in town, that would in turn increase our usage.
It will, if they're charging during peak period. So
During peak
peaks
period.
usually occur at 5 p.m., 6 p.m., somewhere around there.
Okay.
If they have a home charger, of course, when everyone gets home from work, the first thing they're going to do is plug in their vehicle. If it's a public charger, probably not going to contribute as much because it's probably not going to be utilized as much during those peak, 5 to 6 p.m. in the summer. It might be
More of a
used
10 to 2 time frame.
Correct. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Brian, do you have any objections to us taking your briefing and putting it on the website? Okay. So we'll post this along with everything else and just tell the public that if they have any questions they can address, they can send me an email and, I've been doing it a few years. I could most likely answer most of their questions. And the second is an editorial comment could the council speak into the microphones so we can pick it up? Yes, sir, that's you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next, I'd like to call Joe up with AEP On-Site Partners.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come tonight and talk about distributed generation or behind-the-meter generation, as we've been talking about. My name is Joe Glansman. I'm a business development director with AEP On-Site Partners. Our company developed the battery project that was being discussed before in the South River. It's a 10-megawatt battery project, and you can see the batteries along the right side here. This is the transformation equipment that turns the DC voltage into AC voltage to match the grid. It's stepped up in these transformers, in this transformer, and sent over to the substation that's directly adjacent to the battery project. It's a 10-megawatt project. It is specifically designed to run during those coincident peaks that were discussed before. And then the rest of the, those are the 10 hottest hours of the year. You really need to run these battery probably closer to 50 hours a year to make sure that you catch those 10 hours, so you're not sure exactly when they are, so you run them a little more. And the rest of the year, we operate the battery to support the grid, to make sure that the grid stays smooth with renewable, intermittent renewables and just loads coming on and off the system. Any questions about kind of this battery project in South River?
What are the dimensions of that outline there?
That gravel in the fenced-in area there is 80 feet by 120 feet. And then, again, that's a 10-megawatt project, so that would be approximately the size of your peak load, maybe not quite as big, but, so that's about the size you need.
And how long has South River had this?
I believe the project went online in 2022.
And how much did their system cost?
I can't recall offhand the exact cost of that system, but I would say it was probably around $10 million.
They put out $10 million for it. South River paid $10 million to have that built.
No, that system is owned by AEP Onsite Partners, and we dispatch it on their behalf to reduce their loads at the right time of the year.
Council President, we have their CFO here. I don't know, he's like shaking his head.
He's not wearing.
He's here, he can answer.
I didn't want to ask him because he's not wearing his South River hat, and I didn't want to ask him to disclose any information.
But I watch him, he's shaking his head, so.
The Joe show.
No, South River paid zero for it, so we entered into agreement, went out to bid for it, AEP won the bid, and there's parameters in the bid on how this whole entire thing works. The only thing we pay for is AEP to run the system to make sure they capture the peaks, because nobody in South River can do what they do. So that's what we pay for AEP every single year. So their performances are how we generate revenue.
How long is the life of this system?
That's a 10-year contract on the South River battery. The batteries that we're looking at today are a 15-year operating lives.
So it lasts about 15 years, the site.
Yes.
How many units are there? Are some of them in sets?
Microphone, please.
Are some of them in sets, and how many units are there?
They do operate in sets. That right there is a 3-unit system. So there's 3 inverters there at about 3.3 megawatts each. And so they can be offered in different building blocks depending on the size. And they really, they don't have to be oriented in a square. They can be more long, and it depends on the space that you have. But they are kind of modular like that.
How long is the build? You can start like from the time that you say go, whatever paperwork signed. How long does it take to create that and install it and get it up and running?
It's 8 to 12 months.
Are you allowed to share rough savings that South River generates from the electric, or saves from the electric, the battery?
In this presentation, I have some projections of what savings are available for a battery project of
Why don't we
this
let you
size.
get through a couple of the slides, and then we'll inundate you with more questions.
Yeah, no, questions are great. This is great. So some of these slides get into what was just discussed before about kind of the breakdown of power prices, so won't go over that again, but similar to what we saw before, a big jump in the capacity prices in the zone, and a steady climb in transmission rates in the PSE&G region. Those really come from the grid, from the market that you're exposed to, so behind the meter generation is really the path to avoiding those costs. In 2025, transmission will be at $180,000 per megawatt. The capacity charge, I'm showing it in a little different. Those were, the prices shown before were dollars per megawatt day. When you multiply that by 365, you'll get it in dollar per megawatt year. So $180,000 per megawatt per year is what the town will pay for transmission, and $105,000 per megawatt per year is what you'll pay for the capacity portion of your bill. And the key takeaway is reducing the amount that the borough is taking from the grid during those 5 peak hours, the 5 transmission peaks and the 5 capacity peaks. That's where the savings are created. We took a look at your historical usage of data and plotted the red bars here show how much the borough was using during those capacity peaks. I believe that's in 2024, 2023. So really small, no one needs to see the exact numbers, but the point is this shows that you can look backwards and see where you were used. We would do something similar, and if you picture those thin red bars on there, if you picture the battery being dispatched during that hour and dropping the borough's load during those hours, you're just going to have a different billing component on your future PJM bills.
And that would affect the transmission and charge.
The transmission component of the bill and the capacity component of the bill.
Thank you.
So this is to the question earlier about the savings and the volume of the savings. So this is an example of the savings available on transmission. So we've got to assume that the battery is able to reduce the load by 8 megawatts, and the annual rate is $180,000. We typically do a shared savings contract, so we keep, AEP Onsite Partners keeps 25% of the savings that are created, and the borough keeps 75%. So that math, the $180,000 times 8 megawatts times a 75% share would be $1.08 million for transmission revenue. Capacity is 105,000 times 8 megawatts. A 75% share is $630,000. So the project savings available is $1.7 million.
That's gross, right?
That is gross. That is the total amount of savings. So if you know, and the battery project costs would not be even half of that amount. So there's a significant savings that's available to the borough by, you know, having a battery project installed. The other key thing is that we offer a fixed battery service charge. So that is just, when we build these things, we offer them in and have a fixed charge. These rates, we think, are poised to increase. And so, you know, those savings would probably increase over the life of a project.
Especially if we're going up even further, as we heard Brian say earlier, that next year, $1 million, the year after that, the projection from Morgan Stanley even more. So the higher that these transmission fees go up, the greater potential we have for savings.
Yep.
Even if we're not producing necessarily more, it's because we're cutting off that top peak.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question. If we receive the batteries,
Microphone.
would they be new batteries, and what is the lifespan of a battery?
Yes, they would be new batteries. The batteries are, it's a 15-year project contract. We have a warranty on the batteries for the full 15 years.
Okay, thank you.
Have you, how close did you say that the batteries need to be next to the plant that we have right over here on the hill?
So the closer you can get, obviously the less expense you'll have to run cable and conduit to the substation. But as long as you can get.
Have you seen that site yet or not?
Yeah, I saw it on the way in here today. So yeah, so we're familiar with some of the possible locations around town.
Okay.
And you actually have a lot of good spots for a battery, which is kind of rare. So we don't always have that much, but you do have a couple spots here local to the substation. That's.
Can you go vertical with the batteries? Like,
Yes.
you have them laid out. It's narrow. Some spaces might be narrow. Can you go vertical?
Yes, as long as you follow, and we will follow the national electric codes and the building codes that are in force, that we have seen them stacked and built on with the right separation distance.
A little down the road, but at the point where you have 15-year batteries, or if you needed to replace batteries, is the rest of the transmission system that's connected to our power grid, would that remain feasible, or you think that technology would be outdated by then?
That's a great question. So really, it's kind of a two-part system. So there's the whole infrastructure to locate the project and interconnect it to the substation. And at the end of 15 years, some of that, the transformation equipment and the conduit and cable that goes over there, will still be used and useful. And in 15 years, there may be a different technology that you'd want to put on the project site that would, you know, tie in and stay behind your meter. But that is kind of an investment that's made and lives on after the battery project.
So it's component driven, so you could swap.
As long as the cable is sized properly. I mean, in the future, you couldn't add a 50 megawatts if this one's 10, but yeah, it's an investment that really kind of stays with the town.
And I would assume that if you're going to do any retrofit or replacement of batteries, you would try to time that with the colder months so that you're not missing your opportunity to save on the peak hours.
Absolutely. There's a very little amount of maintenance that is with these things, but if something was, you know, any kind of preventative maintenance that needs to be done is done in off-peak hours.
Is it possible to visit a site, for any of us, to visit a site in the area, in New Jersey, to see how it operates?
It is.
Yeah, South
So
River.
River has it.
Well, I
Yes, Joe,
understand that.
let me ask the CFO. Yes, just send me an email. Whoever
Okay,
wants to
well,
come down,
thank you.
we'll have the electric guys open it up and you can see it firsthand.
Thanks.
Now, I understand that South River is doing a expansion project with, I think they're going another 10, is that correct?
Yeah, so Phase 2 was awarded by the governing body. Everything is in AEP's hands now. They're getting everything ordered and lined up, and we're hoping for a June 1st, 25 operational date.
Good time.
So you'll have a
Just
full
in time for the
20
increase.
20 megs.
Yes. Yep.
Just in time for the increase.
Yeah,
That's
good time.
proactive.
Can we buy it from them?
Just, I think, a few more slides here, but just, we usually go over this, you know, these projects are heavy on engineering and design, understanding the balance of system, getting all the permits in place. There's an equipment procurement portion of this, managing the construction, commissioning them. Anything that breaks, we fix, that we're responsible for the product, registering it in PJM, and then all the dispatch and operation and maintenance. So that really is kind of what we do 24/7, 365, is operate distributed generation projects. This is our core competency, and it's really important, you know, to get all that stuff right. You know, you build it right, but you don't operate it right, you're not going to see the savings. You build it too expensive and operate it good, you're not going to have the same return on your investment. So just something to think about as far as all the things that need to come together for a successful project.
Hey, can I ask one last question? Where's all your equipment manufactured?
So we haven't selected any equipment for future projects. The most recent project, we purchased a Tesla Megapack. And I'm trying to think if, I believe that we're going for domestic content incentive on that project, so.
Okay, thank you.
Prevailing wage installation, apprenticeship, prevailing wage and apprenticeship requirements will be met on that project and all future projects.
General security of that kind of the battery project, like, I mean, I'm sure there's no working parts, there's no moving parts. You know, everything's sealed, like, just for vandalism, weather, you know, lightning strike, general stupid.
Yeah, very similar to your own substation, so we're going to have fences around it. We're not going to want people, you know, wandering through it, but it's very similar to high voltage substation equipment, so it'll be fenced, lighted.
It's not reinventing the wheel to secure it, okay.
Is this the first generation? And if so, can you give us a brief history of how the battery came about?
The battery project is not a first generation. The brief history, I'm sorry, on
The battery, the whole idea of this battery.
well, you know, I think people really saw this peak mitigation situation coming on and understanding, and there really is a need to respond to ultra peak pricing. You know, like Brian talked earlier about building a parking lot for Black Friday. The electric system does need to be built for its highest peak hours, and so there is some incentive or benefit to giving customers incentive to not be, you know, basically in the parking lot during Black Friday. And so these ultra peak prices give customers a chance to respond. Some people respond with load curtailments. Steel mills have known to shut down and things like that. It's really hard when you have a lot of residential to do that. And so having a device like this is something that works.
Sure.
I think Tesla saw that years ago, and kind of as they were building their car manufacturing line, they also built a Megapack line. But Tesla's not the only person, you know, making these devices.
Sure.
The system in South River, the first one was built by Wärtsilä, and there's several other manufacturers that make this equipment. So it's a known industry,
Okay.
and people are responding to these peak prices.
Thank you.
So South River has had this for 5 years now?
We went out to bid in 2019, if I remember correctly. I think there were supply chain issues with COVID, like everywhere, in 2020, so it delayed a little bit. 22, I think it went on board in June, and then we started saving in 23. So remember, the battery will capture the peaks in one summer year, and your savings will come the following year. So 23 and 24 were where we've been saving so far.
And South River being part of PJM, you did the same presentation or something similar for the all 9 members, or brought it to PJM at the time?
We
I
did
would
it.
think.
we did a similar presentation for South River, explained to them kind of what was going on with capacity and transmission. It really wasn't a capacity story a couple years ago, it was more of the transmission story, but the same idea. These large fixed portions of your bill are really out of your control unless you have something behind your meter, and they reacted to that and elected to go further into a project. The first one ran, they liked what the savings that they saw, and then they built a second project basically to cover the rest of their load.
And just to let our residents know, the reason why we're saying South River, they also have their own utilities, just like Milltown.
Yes.
So besides having this battery backup, they're in the same boat that we are, so.
Yes.
I don't think they'd have the battery system if they didn't have their own electric
Just
utility.
stating it so the residents know.
So, but what I'm confused with is how, you know, I know George reached out today, and in part that was because of our business administrator saying, hey, you guys got to pay attention to what South River's doing, but, you know, why this is like the first time we're hearing of it as an opportunity. We've owned and operated our electric utility for a while. We had to go through the hurricane issues and moving our substation out of a floodplain or flood zone, whatever the term is these days that they want to fancy it. I'm just curious why now, like, we're finally hearing about it, as opposed to how come it wasn't brought to our attention several years ago? And I don't know if you know that answer, or...
I'll just say that, you know, but no specifically here, but for a lot of our customers, we were watching the capacity markets really not responding, and for years it just, you know, hasn't been that big of an issue, and I think it reached historic lows, and finally now the market, you know, when there's not enough supply for the demand, that happens quickly and prices raise quickly, and so I think what maybe wasn't as big of a problem before is really looking like something that needs to be responded to. So it really could be just the quick shift in the market.
The higher need, kind of creating a market value for you and creating that gap for you to step in and provide services for lovely people like us in our town.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
So what you're saying is we won't see the savings, Joe was saying, until '26?
You will see them the summer after the project first operates to reduce your load.
After the summer we build
Yes.
it?
1 year later. Because you need to get your
It sounds
rate
like the 3 times
adjusted or evaluated based
price.
on your reduced peak.
But it really, hopefully it's the new, you know, the new standard. So it's a 15-year-long project. There will be 15 years of operation, and there will be 15 years of savings in the subsequent years. So sometime, you know, that first year is gonna hurt, but knowing that something's in place to stabilize rates in the future is the longer-term vision, I think, is the key.
And also, too, this is another reason why we send the Nixle out to the residents on the on-peak hours to reduce energy. So this is also an eye-opener for everybody. So.
Yeah.
Now, are we, on the back end, then you're going to see more savings, or it's going to be the same savings year 15?
So at year 15, not really sure what'll happen or, you know, how much use there'll be. We don't expect this to be just a paperweight at that point. And like we talked about earlier, there's going to be a good amount of infrastructure there that can be reused for a different technology, you know, whatever batteries are in at that time, or there could be something new. But there's 3 options, and at that time you can actually ask us to just take the system away and demolish the system or leave parts of it that you would want. We could probably renew it and look at, you know, going from 15 to 17 or, you know, whatever makes sense at that time, or we can, I believe, sell at the fair market value at the time. So a lot of options. It's totally in the borough's control of what happens at the end.
Do the batteries perform, is there a decline in the performance of the batteries for over the lifespan? Like I know you're saying the warranty ends at 15.
Yes.
However, is it still going to have the same capacity after 10 years as it will on its initial?
So there is a warranty on the amount of capacity that'll be there, as long as the battery is operated under the warranty. So
15, we're consistent for 15.
That's right. And it's our job to operate that battery within the requirements of to maintain the warranty. So we can't run it 8,760 hours a year. We have to use it, you know, at 1 cycle per day or 2 cycles, you know, whatever the warranty requires. And so,
so your 25% that you're taking enlists your system to make sure that you're running it enough to make it profitable for all of us.
That's right. And that 25% is really just to reduce the battery payment fee so
Sure.
that it's, so that, you know.
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with that at all. I'm just meaning that you have a vested interest.
That's right.
In this going well.
That shared savings structure
And we
is
don't necessarily
mostly there.
need to manage it on a day-to-day.
That's right.
It's
Our
more of a.
incentives are aligned.
It is the crock pot of savings.
When we
Set
do
it and
well,
forget it.
when the battery project does well, the both savers are doing well.
Okay.
So you're saying it's not going to cost the borough any upfront money? Is that what you're saying, or?
If you elect the same structure that South River did, then there would be no money.
Other than location.
Microphone.
Other than location.
At least I can hear.
That's right.
Because I actually asked the Assemblyman to stick around a little while, because I knew this was going to be interesting, and when we looked at this already, actually, the mayor and I were on a conference call with the freeholders, or whatever they're called now.
Commissioners.
Commissioners.
Whatever.
Whatever.
I'm old school.
Whatever.
So the freeholders, and
not freeholders.
and we talked about the area adjacent to our existing substation. They had indicated it was now part of a list of properties that are preserved open space. And so part of that was, well, can we stick around and swap that? And I was hoping the assemblymen might have been able to use their persuasive nature to try and make that happen for us, or at least help us navigate it a little bit better, because there's not too many other locations. One, we've got a floodplain over here, and then I know the other we talked about was potentially behind the Dunkin' Donuts, as that is another location that is elevated, but yet relatively close to our electric substation where it is now.
So our goal would be to help you minimize the cost of the project, to help give you ideas about where we see cost increase or cost reduction capabilities, you know, but just in general, the closer you can get and the higher you can get, the less you're going to have to spend to bring copper to the batteries and raise them. So,
Greater potential for savings.
yes. And the lower the cost of the installation, the greater the savings.
And like you said, like we asked, you manage the whole center, and if there's a damaged battery, how long does it take to fix that if something occurs?
So depending on what it is, it could be a supply chain issue, but that's back to the inline incentives on the savings. When that's out, then the savings are down for both parties. So we're moving quickly. We operate a fairly large fleet of these, so we have spare parts for these things. We're not just waiting around for them to break. And we really understand how it's operating throughout the year, so we can see things, you know, giving us trouble, and we can get those replaced before the peak season. So those are the big things we do to kind of minimize that downtime and keep the project operational.
So 24/7, 365, you guys don't close?
We don't close.
There we go.
Our job is to keep that thing on, and it's really, like I said, it's our core competence. That's what we do.
Perfect.
So with maintenance from your side, do you need is someone here supposed to be trained to do anything there?
No, and I'll let the South River speak for that, but we don't, we certainly need help to understand and interconnect, but normally when we're going and looking at the battery, it's to help us get access to the substation. There's no wrench turning.
Yeah, it's
done
like a
by-
partnership. They contact us when they have to get in,
Okay,
and it's their battery, so they're handling their battery.
okay, thank you.
I get it, and you guys own the battery throughout and at the end, so it is yours and we shouldn't touch it. It's better that way.
That's right.
Voids the warranty.
Voids the warranty, indeed. With that said, so, let's just say, I mean, guess just looking at the picture, when you have the stack of 3 to 4 different batteries, or battery stations, if one were to go down, does the system remain running just at a lower rate? Or does, it's a sliding scale like that?
No, that's a good question. So it's really tied to those inverters. So if there's a problem with one of the inverters, then it could take down the 3.3 megawatts associated with that. If the problem's in one of the battery cells, you may only have, 100 kW. They're kind of like server racks. And so it's really where the issue is. It's very rare for the entire system to be taken out. But if there was something wrong with the transformer, then you could have something like that. But even then, now we're really getting into more transformers per train, and so you really just lose one of the 3.3 megawatt
I
blocks.
got you. So there's incrementals to it, so that it would continue to work, even though it may not work at full capacity.
Right.
But we'd still.
And we try to design so there isn't that single point of failure, but
Great.
Could adverse weather create a problem?
It could,
Any
I
kind of
suppose it
enforcement.
could, but we try to set them up so that they're not, subject to that. A lot of our cable and conduit is underground, and the closer we can get, the more we can assure that, but they definitely can handle the heat, the rain, the snow.
Okay. Basically, we're a year too late.
Say again?
We're a year too late before the transmission costs go up.
The sooner the better, I would say. The sooner it's operating, the better it is for your future.
As the other guy said, 25 and 26 look to be 3 times, it's never too late to start a 401K. I don't know,
Yeah.
same kind of theory? But,
That's right.
yeah, I mean, sooner we do it,
Yes, so I
sooner
guess-
we save money.
So I guess what are the next steps? What do we need to do as council
Good question.
to look into this?
You're looking at me?
Yeah.
Well, what do I sign?
Do we have to create a ordinance or a resolution to?
I need to, this has been a presentation, so I need to figure out how South River went out to bid on this and the parameters of it. There's a fair amount of information that I'm gonna need, so.
And you'll have that by the next meeting for us, Peter?
We can't wait a
By
year.
tomorrow, absolutely,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Contract signed all by the next?
We can't
I'm
wait a
actually
year.
gonna start the
Peter.
install tonight, so it's fine.
Excellent.
No, so at least you're
Yeah,
aware
well,
of.
I can start the ball, I mean, I need someone to tell me what to do. I
Do
get
you
tasked,
need,
so.
consent approval to move forward with investigating, preparing, that type of stuff?
Yeah, if the council's so inclined and they would like to pursue this more, just say yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Mayor, what we'll do is we'll get Joe, we have a bunch of stuff, Brian has a bunch of stuff, the other Joe has a bunch of stuff. The lady who wrote up the contract for South River is long retired, Jill, Crackerjack, electrical attorney.
Microphone.
But that information, if you can't hear me, I can't help you. And I'm not sitting in Joe's lap, so I'm sorry.
That would be a little awkward.
Don't go there. Yeah, we're not that far. So we will get the information to the council like we did before with this presentation and then get you involved to get this project up and running. You'll probably then have another meeting, most likely via Teams or Zoom, unless Joe and I have to fly out to Bob Evans in Columbus to have breakfast, to talk to them personally. Nobody else is invited but Joe and I, Brian. Sorry.
We
You
can't
gotta
do this
stay here and hold the
legally.
fort.
This is
So we'll
a
get-
legal project, Fred, I'm sorry. Either I'm invited or.
We're taking a bus trip. But anyway, this is easy, now that I have 7 members of council agreeing, holy cow, write this down, that we'll move forward as fast as we can to get it back to the council with some definitive decisions that the council needs to make, other than moving the project forward. One of the things that the Joes will have to figure out is where do we site this project? It's a good idea talking to Green Acres. Unfortunately, in my experience, it's by the time we get approval to find Green Acres spot next to the county thing, it'll be 10 years from now.
Which leads us to possibly a title search for other properties in town that would be in the
Again,
proximity.
further away from the substation, the increase in our costs and our decrease in our profits. We're looking at some places closer with some different ideas. We'll bring some of those ideas back to council. I think some of them are pretty easy.
I have one more question for the gentleman standing here so patiently is, do you guys have any plans to expand your core competences to include something of water generation or sewage disposal? Because we've got a problem with that as well, the cost of that going up, and we're hoping maybe you can help.
Not at this time, we're electrons.
Figure it was worth it.
Water, electricity.
You don't perhaps have your department, your company doesn't provide any type of services in trying to offer assistance in acquiring land or any legal services in that matter, do you? Is that
We have
something you guys
a
get
lot of
involved in?
experience helping and talking, and sharing our experience of like where this might take longer in your lead time, and what could work, but.
There's nothing we can hand off, but you can help us.
No. Let me speak, no. We have to fight that fight ourselves here locally, amongst ourselves.
Let us know how we can help.
Councilman Revelinsky, I was going to say that you could probably ask that question to Elon Musk. Because I think he'd come up with something.
He'd come up with something.
Joe, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Appreciate your
And
time. Thank
Brian,
you.
thank you very much. Sorry you're both here at the same time, but it's coincidental that
It's also good.
it's also very
Actually,
good.
perfect time.
Actually planned that way.
It overlapped us. So thank both of you gentlemen.
The problem and the solution. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you
it.
for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a public hearing on community development block grant. I'll read this. So, the purpose of the public hearing tonight regarding the Housing and Community Development Fund is to receive citizens' input on how the borough should spend any housing community development funds that are allocated to the borough. Housing and community development funds are monies received from the federal government and administered by the county government. The use of the housing and community development funds is limited to certain projects. Monies allocated for these funds round are expected to be approximately $58,919 for Milltown. In the past, we have funded educational, recreational, and nutritional programs, senior transportation, director salary, building improvements such as new windows, new roof, ADA compliant sidewalks and ramps. At this time, I will open the floor to public comment. If anyone from the public wishes to comment, please state your name and address for the record. Okay. May I have a?
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Dorianne Kerber, 24 Riva Avenue. I just wanted to say this is a great opportunity to even expand next year on things that we will need in the playgrounds, in the parks. I think that's fantastic that we're going to be getting some funding. You have to prepare it to the county. They get the federal funds, and then the county distributes it. But if you don't say anything, you get much of nothing. And Middlesex County gets a bundle of money, just like Woodbridge, Edison. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars because they put the plan together and itemize what they need the funding for. It's beyond affordable housing as well as the senior center. So that'll be great in the future for all of us and the other departments as well. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Hello, Margaret O'Donnell, 89 Kutha Avenue. I just heard you say that it could be used for the senior center, and I just came from the senior center, so I'm aware that they're having some HVAC and fan issues. So I don't know if it could cover the facility itself, but if it can, there's a project in the waiting.
All right, I'd like to close the public hearing. May I have a motion in a second, please?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. All in favor, or is this a roll call vote?
This is just for the public hearing, so this is just it's just to close it. That was
You
just,
gotta close the public hearing. Okay.
So in the
So all in
consent,
favor
in the
is fine.
consent agenda, this is the public hearing, and then the consent agenda has the resolution authorizing the submission of the packet, if you will.
Perfect.
For the council's information at the end of the public meeting, as I stated in my, previously, is that, we're a little bit behind the power curve based on some transition issues here, rolled over to an easy fix, if you will, which is to fix some sidewalks in town. We have a lot of conversation since I've been here about sidewalks needing working and curb cuts. Curb cuts can work anywhere in town regardless of the demographics, because everybody who is challenged, if you will, needs to go up and down the sidewalks, in and out of crosswalks, things like that. We traditionally use them to fix places where we're paving the roads and we're doing those things, and it sort of helps us with that. Then we offset a portion of the director of the senior center. I would hope that next year that if we want to do some improvements to the senior center, let's say we want to fix the windows, I've heard about today that they want to fix the windows, that we would have a senior citizens participation CDBG group appointed by the mayor and council, who would then sit, vet ideas, bring them to the council or bring them to me, and we would submit these to the county, in March, not September. So this should have been done in March, but obviously my office was a little behind the power curve to get this done. Now we're just trying to prevent from losing the money.
Can I speak here?
Yes, sir, yes.
Fred, I don't know if you recall, I'm a little surprised by this. I appreciate it. I came to your office at least 6 months ago with Ralph to talk to you about things that we plan to do at the senior center. And you were going to look into this grant. I'd assumed things were happening. And I'm really surprised by this because I knew that the ramps would be an item that would be happening. But I assumed things were going to be happening at the senior center, and I haven't heard a thing until I saw this. So I understand what you're saying, that this shouldn't be coming up now. It should have been done months ago, and I did come to you months ago.
You are correct, sir, and a month
Yes, I
ago,
am.
yes, sir, you are correct. And 6 months ago, I was alone in the office, okay?
Okay, but...
No, but I'm just saying, yes, you are
speaking like
correct.
This shouldn't have come up now.
You are
This did
correct.
come up many months ago.
Yes, sir, you are correct. I got overwhelmed. I'll take that hit.
Fred, do you know how many years ago we used to get a grant for the senior center? It's been a couple of years now, hasn't it?
So we, in Milltown, as the ladies have both mentioned, this is a yearly cycle in Middlesex and all the other counties where you apply for, you have an allocation, if you will. Our allocation is at 58,000 and change. It's based on population, okay? The county comes down and says, this is how much money you're allocated. You could get, what do you want to do with it? This is your tentative allocation. You submit a project request, and then they go through a vetting process, and then you get more and or less, depending on what your needs are.
Yeah, but my question is, we didn't get this last year, did we?
Yes, you did. You got
did get it last year.
$58,000, yes, sir.
$58,000?
89K or something like that to the salary for the director, and 50,000 is in Ralph's pile, if you will, for sidewalk improvements and things like that.
Thanks.
But we haven't spent any of that yet.
Hey, Fred, can I ask a quick question about the number of ramps that we'll be able to get with the $50,000? Is it 5? Is it 5? Because they run like 10,000 apiece?
Well, that depends on whether or not we have to hire a CME to design them or not.
I got it, okay.
So you probably get like 2.
2, okay.
Zing! Let's move on.
So it's included in a project cost in the design of a road. There's a portion, we'll just use the sidewalk, the CDBG money to pay for the sidewalk portion or the ramp portion, and other grant monies to pay for the other portion.
Thank you.
Okay. Now's the time for public comment limited to the resolutions on the agenda. If you wish to speak, please step up to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. Again, this is the public portion is limited to the comments only on the resolutions listed on the agenda at this time. Just a reminder, under the rules of council, individuals wishing to speak during the public input part of the meeting shall be limited to 5 minutes, and they may, after others speakers have finished, may be allowed to speak for a second 5-minute period.
Joe, excuse me, Joe Piatanza, 15 Bruce Court. So, I saw the latest water and sewer increases, and I come up with 71% increase for water and sewer without flushing my toilet or running my faucet. Is this what you guys worked on? And, I mean, where do these numbers come from? How short are we with New Brunswick? Me personally, I think my increased cost will be $118 a quarter. What are there? There's about 2,500 homes in Milltown, right?
2,604 meters.
Okay, so 118 times 2,500 is 295,000. How short are we? Can somebody, do you all have the data that formulated these price increases?
Yes, we went through it at the Finance Committee.
Microphone, Council President, please.
We went through it at the Finance Committee meeting.
And who's on finance?
Councilman Potter, myself, and Councilman Collins.
John, you saw the data?
Yes.
Dave, you saw the data?
Briefly, yes.
We spent an entire 3-hour meeting on it.
Not looking at the data.
No, I can't help it if you don't look at it.
All right.
So,
So-
Remember, they talked about Joe,
So 290, guys, 295 a quarter increase. How much money do we need? How much money do we need to charge people? 71% without doing anything. I get it, I understand it had to go up. You know, I was here in June. I understand, it needed to go up. How much? How much are we short? That's my question.
We didn't focus on how much it's going up, we focused on balancing a budget. Right now, the water operating budget is around $2.9 million, which when you divide that out by 2,604 residents, comes out to about $285 per quarter. That's what keeps us operating a system, so that when you want water, you can actually turn the faucet on and something comes out. Quality of it, well, we have to improve upon that. That's going to cost more money if we don't get more grants. But it's $285 a quarter. That's how it works with 2,604 meters.
Without
CFO
doing
had
anything,
verified those numbers.
just the base.
That's it. Now, if you add usage into that, the problem that results is that we have to pay New Brunswick for every gallon we use in both water and sewer. So now, if we want to include 7,500 gallons per quarter, the cost of that is around $8.50 per 1,000 gallons. So add that on to your 285. And that would have to be the minimum. Any other way you do it, you're not guaranteed the revenue. And the revenue is needed to pay for operating costs, our overhead. So instead of having folks say, I'm paying for water I'm not using, now there is no water in there that you're not using. Everybody in town pays the same. They pay $285 to be connected a quarter, and then $9 per 1,000 gallons for everything they use.
And Milltown needed roughly $1.2 million.
The operating budget is about $2.9 million. And our CFO is here, he can verify those numbers if you like.
Councilman, I'm saying $1.2 million additional from what we were paying.
Again, I didn't look at what we were paying, I looked at what the budget is and what our costs are. Now, you heard the gentleman say earlier, if we didn't get $350,000 in COVID money, we would have been upside down on the rates again last year.
Right, he did say that, and it was 300, and I think he said you needed about 100 to make it work. But I just think, you know, unfortunately, it's excessive, but, you know, you guys have the vote.
don't forget, Joe, most of that is sewer. You have 179.66 in the sewer.
Well,
That's all encompassed, that's
Right,
in
yeah,
the
but
that's in the
It
285.
costs us more for the sewer than it does for the water.
I
to
understand.
dispose of. Yeah.
I do understand, but I just think, I just think this is excessive, but that's my opinion. But thank you for your time.
Councilman Revelinsky, do you recall when I ran the first time that there was several hundred thousand overage in the water fees, and they asked what I would do with it? And I
Something
said it
around
would go back to the people?
I think that
And-
was
and then
2
look
years
what-
ago?
2 years ago.
$600,000 was left in surplus?
Right, 650,000. What happened to that money?
All right, let's,
I don't know.
get back to the meeting first.
It's what happens when we don't raise the rates.
Okay, I'll close the public portion of the meeting. Meeting minutes for September 9th, 2024, regular meeting are on the agenda for approval. Are there any comments or corrections? Can I have a motion to accept the meeting's minutes as typed?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Ordinance, public hearing, second reading. The ordinance was introduced on September 9th, 2004, published in accordance with law If any member of the public wishes to comment on this ordinance, they may do so after reading. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1540 by title?
Ordinance 24-1550, ordinance to amend Chapter 25, Water of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Milltown.
May I have a motion for ordinance 24-1550?
So moved. It's all right, if you don't adopt it, the rates that we have now stay in place, and that'll generate more than enough revenue. Hence why there was no sunshine clause.
No, but if you did put a sunshine clause in there, it would have come down.
You'd be screwed right now. Yeah.
But that's on you.
Okay, Mr. Vignola, how do we?
If there's no second,
There's no second.
it fails.
Okay, so there's no second. All right.
Very well. So now, instead of $285 a month plus paying for your water, we're going to stick at $316 a quarter.
It was never introduced a second time.
We get a motion and a second, and they open the public
You need a motion and a
hearing.
second to move it forward, and then you have a public hearing on it. So in the absence of a second,
There's no public hearing.
Good question.
Okay.
Technicality.
All right.
Following ordinance was introduced on September 9th, 2024, and published accordance with law. If any member of the public wishes to comment on this ordinance, they may do so after the reading. Will the clerk please read ordinance 24-1551 by title?
Ordinance to amend Chapter 26 Sewer, Section 26-7.9 Sewer Use Charges of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Milltown.
I have a motion.
Yes, so moved. Introduce the amended sewer rates so we can pay the bills next year. Nobody? Nobody with a spine. Very well.
I'll second it, so we can have the conversation.
There you go. And now the lovely lady from the audience can come up.
Motion made by Council President Revlinsky, seconded by Councilman Manco. Want to
Public
open it
comment.
up for public.
Okay, that makes sense. You're right, I thought about it afterwards. I mean, sorry.
Public comment first.
Public comments.
Thank you. Margaret O'Donnell, 89 Kutha Avenue. So the rate structure sounds like it would change with this. So I see the base quarterly amount, and then I see all gallonage. So could anybody just walk us through exactly what a bill might look like under this rate structure?
Well, I think it would be virtually impossible to maintain this rate structure since the water didn't pass. But to answer your question, the way this works is we have certain obligations that are the budgeted cost for operating the sewer department and water. So we took the respective values of each, divided out amongst the number of customers, and said, that's the fixed key. That fixed amount also includes 20 million gallons of unaccounted for water, meaning water that we don't bill customers for, that whether it's in a leaky pipe under there, or it's filling the borough pool or flushing hydrants, we're not metering it, we don't know where it goes. We just know we're using about 20 million gallons a year. So the concept was, you cover all your costs, divide it out, that keeps us running, and then anything you use, you pay for. So the sewer bills, I think, when we divided it out last year, it was around $5.35 per 1,000 gallons of sewage that was pumped through New Brunswick. That's what we got a bill for. So we put a small portion on there, made it $5.50, and said, good enough. It will generate a little cushion in case you have a rainy day, something comes up, you have a break, you got a little bit of extra cash to fix things.
So it doesn't change that the previous water amount is how you calculate the gallonage of sewer amount that you're billed? So your water usage determines Your bill for gallon?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it
So that
still
stays
would
the
be.
same.
Your water usage equals your sewage.
Okay. And one suggestion I heard at a previous meeting that you talked about installing meters, and I think it might be a good idea to have meters installed on the borough facilities. You send us back to our meter to measure in case there's a leak or something. That's a good way to find it. That would be a good way to find it on borough facilities as well.
I've been saying it for years.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, seeing no more, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting. Is there any council comments?
I'd like to say something.
Microphone, please.
I'd like to say something. I recommend that the mayor may consider forming a 3-council-person committee with input from all of council in regards to the water and sewer rates. We on council should appear in lockstep, helping all of our fellow residents in Milltown. It is council that legislates. Let's work together and make things fair for all our residents. We don't want an unfair burden to displace long-term townspeople who have called Milltown home for generations. I have one thing to add. To put things in perspective, since COVID, we've seen the cost of everything soar, the burden of unfair inflation affecting all of us. Food, clothing, shelter, gas, the cost of living, everyday needs have become a luxury for many. We on council want to keep the cost of everything we bill you as low as fiscally possible. So much is out of our hands. We mostly have to find a way to make things work here in Milltown.
So I think, as clear as its statement, everything has gone up. And as going up trickles down, it's all going up for the town. What I did notice, and I like the concrete numbers of this is what it costs, we divide that up, everybody pays their share. Let's do a minimal markup on the water. The part that I like about that is that what that also means is that a business like Acme, who is, I don't know, a food service, any food service required to do a lot of washing, a lot of cleaning, a lot of paying for the gallon, paying through the nose on a high rate, which I think is a valid concern in the future for businesses in the town. I think if we want to be conducive to having businesses, that is something that they pay an exorbitant amount of. Granted that one charge is heavy for someone who barely uses water, but they'll be paying less on their rate per gallon as the markup goes. And there's a security in the trade of consistency. If we're going to play with that balance, if we go, okay, so instead of having a standard incremental payment of this much, and you're going to raise the water rate a little more, if you want to make that one lower, you're raising the other side of it. And my concern is, as being in town for a dozen years, I would really think that we'd like to get away from having these conversations of, so there's a gap, and we got to come up with X amount of dollars. And I think the overall presence of, the overall concept of this plan was to safely say, we don't have to worry about that. It doesn't mean it doesn't, it doesn't mean it's comfortable. It doesn't mean it's our favorite thing. But that is the security, the trade of budgeting, of knowing that it's going to be there, and you're not going to have to come over the top, or the likelihood of having to come over the top is very, very slim. I like that it builds in an equitable change from whatever New Brunswick changes us, that's what it goes up from that point on. I think that there is a trade of consistency. You buy a new car, you've got a payment. You have an old car, maybe you pay nothing today. Maybe you got to buy a new transmission. That's, just, maybe that's just where I'm at. I'm willing to trade that. So.
I just think that we should still adhere to the tiered system of water usage, and, the more you use, the more you pay, because the seniors in Milltown can't afford anything but the minimum, And I don't feel that it'd be fair to say, well, I can use a lot more water, then you should pay for a lot more water. And the seniors that can just get by on, the minimum 7,500 gallons it was, I don't know if it's going to be 7,500 in the future, and a lot of towns are going to 5,000 gallons, that we should just keep that system in to preserve the seniors in our town, because we certainly, don't want them leaving the town that they've lived in for years and years, because we just keep, raising the water rates. I mean, it's a difficult situation, and I just think we got to protect our seniors in this town and some of the minimal users.
I'll add to that. I'll rebut. The tiered system is unfair to the folks who are billed for the 3 hottest months of the summer in one bill. I've said this many times already. There's an inconsistency. You can use the same amount of water anywhere in town in June, July, and August as anybody else. But if you get billed for June, July, and August in one shot, you're going to hit the tier. And that tier is going to make you pay more dollars per gallon, just simply because of when your billing cycle goes. Now, I spoke to a resident today. He didn't realize that we don't bill the entire town at the same time for water. We bill a third this month, and then another third of the town the next month, and another third the next month. It's what also puts us on this cycle of we have to do it 4 times a year that we have the opportunity to introduce new rates. And if we miss one of those, well, what looked like a 25% increase is now going to be a 30% increase, because now you got to make it up over only 75% of the year. The numbers don't lie. And the whole purpose behind this ordinance, in addition to capturing the rental units and making the people in an apartment of 4 pay the same amount for a water service as the 2 folks who are living in the home that they've lived in for the past 40 years, was fair and equitable. The other thing it required was that when we have a contract with New Brunswick, our water supplier, if that contract says every year the rates go up 3.5%, it took it away from council from having to increase the rates, which, if you look at the last 5 years, we made such a huge stink when the rates went up 30%, and we played politics with it to the point where who could ever justify voting for a rate increase? Now you look like a hypocrite. I mean, God, I just blamed everyone for raising the rates, and here I am raising it? I get it. You handcuffed yourself. And 5 years later, where are we? Without the use of COVID money, upside down in a water budget. When you see revenue decreasing and surplus decreasing year after year, and you do nothing about the rates, you're either too stupid or too cowardice to be up here and do the job. This isn't a popularity contest. We have a responsibility to look out for the future of Milltown today and to do what's right. And if you don't want to do it, by all means, get reelected. I don't care. But the problem is, getting reelected and doing nothing just means you're doing absolutely nothing for the future of this town. You're just kicking the can down the curb, you're just prolonging the inevitable, and you're putting us in a worse and worse situation. You don't want to pay the bills? Don't pay the bills. You want the water rates to be less than what they are? Pick a number out of a hat. Go ahead, throw it up there, see if it sticks. The math's got to work. Right now, we're at $3.16 per quarter for 7,500 gallons. Under the new system, you'd have at least a chance to pay $2.85 and only pay for the water you're using. Shooting down the water and sewer ordinances tonight just means that $3.16 stays on longer. And you know what? If that stays for a whole year, it is going to generate so much more money than we need. Talk about being fair to the residents. But don't worry, we won't touch the rates after that. I'm sure they'll stay exactly where they are. It won't be dropped down. And in 5 years from now, we'll be right back here again going, oh my God, a 30% increase.
I think there's a lot to dislike about the current system. The easiest thing to look at in the new one is the rate per gallon and that quarterly payment. However, the overall package, all the thoughts about it that include that include basically creating the new meters. It also puts in there a lot of good things that happen, that when someone creates a new apartment building, someone makes a new, there's a charge for new connections that are going to help offset if things happen in any one of the other places that all these units may appear. The current program, regardless of the rates, does not provide any long-term protections for the town, any future benefit, and it hasn't been done with forethought. Clearly, there's a lot of good things in this proposal, in both sides of it. Whether we do one rate or the larger per gallon, smaller original payment, the basic idea is that this whole system has been flawed, and if you've lived here, you probably noticed it. What the final details end up being, I'm simple on math. It works, it doesn't have to be revisited. But it needs to pass in order to work. But it falls upon the council at some point, regardless of how we feel, regardless of history, as if there's a blank slate. What are we doing about Milltowns tomorrow? And if we don't have that answer tonight, I can live with that. But we are going to have to come up with an answer. And I think there are a lot of things in this that are well worth preserving. I mean, I would vote for it. I'm sorry I didn't second it, but, it seems that would have been a moot point anyway. But there's a lot of good detail that's gone into this, and there's a lot of things that protect this town in the long run. And I think a disservice gets done when inaction is taken. I would love to see someone say, here's what I would vote for. Here's what I do think would be better. Here's how we can change this. Because no one said, of all these points, I like this one, this one, this one, this one. That's what I don't like. Having a committee where 3 people get together, it sounds like I'll see you guys in March. And I'm just not that patient.
So I have to say, I don't think you need 3 people. I think we need to get all together in executive session with charts, with numbers, with our CFO, with our BA and discuss it.
I second that.
No, I'm just saying.
I second that.
I didn't
No,
know
no,
them separate.
I'm just saying too, I do remember there were emails going back and forth of also proposals for this that were ignored. So this isn't going away. We're gonna work on this and get this done. It's just what is here tonight just doesn't work. Because you're hurting the seniors, you're hurting the minimum users, and the ones that are using more. So in other words, instead of going like this, we're going like this. And it should go like this.
Right.
So that's what we have to work on, and we will. It's just not gonna happen.
We want to further punish the people who water their lawns and put a pool in their
I'm
yard.
one of them.
because-
Well, I want to say
Yeah,
something.
I'm one of them.
I want to say something. I'm not,
One person at a time, please.
go ahead, Rich.
I think the idea of doing it in executive session and taking some time to do it.
You can't have, the discussion needs to happen before the public. So, just so we're all on the same page, your rate discussions are something that the public is privy to. If you want to discuss it in a committee and then bring it to the public, you can do that. But you can't all convene in closed session to do that.
I stand corrected.
Okay? Just so you know.
No, I say, Dave, you're right, because it's like, if you know you're being billed the highest in those 3 months, then don't use the water. Just don't turn your spigot on, don't water the lawn, don't fill your pool. If you want to do that, then you're gonna pay more. And I accept that. I water my garden, I water my lawn. If the seniors are in the house, they should get the minimal charge. They're not gonna be watering their lawn, and the people in apartments aren't gonna be, filling their pool.
So right now, we used to have it up to a certain amount. There was a minimum. That minimum is gone. So
That's right.
if a senior up to 7,500 gallons of water
Right.
in the past, they use that, that's it.
Right.
But now it's 285 plus gallons per gallon.
That's correct.
So
Under
it's
this.
going up way
No,
more.
it's not. You guys didn't vote for the water bill. You didn't vote for it, so it is what it is. It's still $3.15 for 7,500
If
gallons.
we're talking both though, we didn't have a discussion for the first one because it wasn't, so we're talking.
No, because you didn't have a second. You had your chance to make comments at the last meeting, and your only comments were, well, I think we need to clarify this a little bit.
Right.
I think we need to clarify that. No comments about the rates themselves or how they were structured. You sat in the meeting, you heard the example from our CFO, you ran through the numbers, and you sat there and go, wow, this stinks, but I get it.
Joe, were you here at the last meeting? So you stand corrected. Our CFO was not here at the last
I'm
meeting.
talking about the finance meeting
You were-
before
you
we
said
even
the CFO
introduced
at the last
these.
meeting,
No,
so that's fine.
the finance meeting, when we introduced these, when we sat down and went through the final numbers, and we got it down to 285. That meeting, you sat and said nothing.
Now, wait a minute.
That was
too,
a
sir.
committee meeting.
Wait, hold
Oh,
on.
but no, wait till we get up
Can I
here,
just-
we'll make a
hang on.
big stink,
Can I
and we'll
just-
show.
Are you done? Are you done? Are you done? Are you finished?
Can the clerk please
Because,
call the roll?
hold on, can I just say something? Councilman Collins also said no.
Okay.
And Councilman Collins is also on utilities and finance.
And Councilman Collins should be to blame as well. Can the clerk please call the roll?
I'll take the blame.
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
No.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
No.
Councilman Potter.
No.
Councilman Zambrana.
No.
Motion does not pass.
Authorizing payment to municipal obligations. Next on the agenda, we have the authorization of payments of municipal obligations. Will the clerk please read the resolution by title?
Authorizing the payment of bills, claims, and statements against the Borough of Milltown in the total amount of $2,153,939.63.
You have heard the reading of this resolution. Are there any questions?
You got questions on
I
it?
have, for the obligations here, it's on page 4, and it is, let's see. Okay. It's the special counsel.
Yes, sir?
I know I'm not going to talk about what the special counsel is there for. I believe they've been here for about, 4 or 5 months? This has been ongoing for 4 or 5 months?
Yes, sir?
Do you know how much money has been spent to date, approximately?
I don't have that number in front of me, sir. I just know they're on the bill list. They've been here a while, probably close to 10 grand.
Okay. I was asked to speak to a person, and I did not want to speak personally to him. I asked him to send me email questions, and that was about a month and a half ago. And I see a bill here for this, and this is ongoing, and I see nothing productive in this for any party. And all I see this is that it's cash going to a company, and it's not helping here. You have the taxpayers here that are being billed for this, and I don't see any purpose because I haven't seen anything of any resolve here. That's just my thoughts.
Can we amend the bill list and choose not to pay that bill, just because we haven't seen anything from it?
No, sir, you can't do that.
Can't do it. Okay.
Sorry. Peter?
No,
You covered it.
either one of us can say it.
Can I ask that, since nothing is happening, that this be resolved immediately?
Well,
We finished with them.
Councilman Poznanski, I don't know that it's, as you're aware, you authorized a certain set of actions to occur. My understanding is that's ongoing as evidenced by the bill list. So just because there's been no resolution doesn't mean that nothing's happening. I believe that you had asked your business administrator to provide you with an update. I would say, in light of what the subject matter is, that might be appropriate again with a directed email to the parties involved.
We can do that. I believe you had that question a month ago. We provided a response to that. It is ongoing. I do know that you did not respond, but others have, and he's conducted interviews and
You
emails.
said I did not respond?
No, he did not. You know, I believe you indicated, sir, that he had contacted you and you didn't want to respond. You wanted to do it by
I did
email?
respond. He did not respond in return. I have the date.
Yes, sir, I got that.
But at the beginning of this, I think that I'll speak for myself, that I was okay with it, and now I'm not, because it's just dragging. It's just a drag to the taxpayers. Just my opinion.
May I have a motion and a
Oh,
second?
I got a question on page 11 about the pump services. That's the same company, they did pumping service at all these places? $21,000?
Page, which?
Page
Is that
Page 11.
SHI?
No.
No, it says Pumping Services Incorporated.
I'm getting it.
It's $21,583.42.
Pumping Services works on our sewage pump station stuff, don't they? Providing parts and repair?
That's correct.
Part of which we had $120,000 budgeted in water sewer, of which we spent $186,000 last year fixing a sewage pump station. Year after year. 100,000 plus. This is part of it, but it's okay.
To be answered.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
Other than the comments, the short answer is they are the people who we call out to do the work.
Okay. I'll make a motion, we pay the bills.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Collins, seconded by Councilman Potter. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Go right ahead.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
All right. Consent resolution has been prepared for the resolutions listed on the agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and having been reviewed by Borough Council will be enacted on in one motion. Any items removed from the consent agenda at the request of the council member, and if so removed, will be treated on in a separate matter. Any items requiring expenditures are supported by a certification of funds. If there are a number of council wants any resolution acted upon individually, please give me the resolution number and I will pull from the consent resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 2024-268?
268, you said?
Yes.
And just, Mr. Mayor, I put a new copy of 2024-267 on the dais for everyone. I had the years 2023 instead of 2024 in the actual resolution, so I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, will the clerk please read the consent agenda resolution?
Whereas pursuant to the rules of council, the council may establish a consent agenda for any regular or special meetings upon certain conditions. And whereas each of the following resolutions to be presented before the Borough Council at its September 23rd, 2024 regular meeting appear to have the unanimous approval of all members of the Borough Council, 2024-263 through 2024-267 and 2024-269. Now therefore be it resolved.
So
I'm sorry,
moved.
what?
Said so moved.
I didn't finish reading the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now therefore be it resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Milltown that each of the above listed resolutions be approved and adopted by the Borough Council with the same legal effect as though each were read in its entirety at the September 23rd, 2024 regular meeting and adopted by separate vote. Now I'm ready.
So moved.
Heard the reading of this
Sorry.
resolution.
Second.
Approved by Councilman Collins, seconded by Councilman Potter. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-268 by title?
Authorizing award of contract under New Jersey State Contract 23-FLEET-34933, 2024 Dodge Durango Pursuit All-Wheel Drive, Nielsen of Morristown, not to exceed $50,701.66.
What's the pleasure of council?
Move that this resolution be adopted.
Second.
Motion made by Council President Revelinsky, seconded by Councilman Potter. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I pull this just to ask a couple of quick questions. What department is this for? Is this DPW?
No.
Police.
Is this something that was, is this a purchase that was supply chain related from last year, or are we just replacing another car?
I was replacing a 20-year-old detective car that is like falling apart, that we don't even take out of town anymore.
Okay.
So I will say that for the last couple of months, Councilman, we've gone back and forth looking. We found a vehicle, but it was outside the bid state contract for but the QPA was a little nervous that we were, outside of that window. It was, because as you know, you buy a car that's older, it's already decreased in value even more when you drive it off the lot. So this was So then we went back, so we went back and bought one that's, a 2024 instead of a 2022. It's been sitting on the lot that you would have bought it yourself because it was a really good deal, but we constrained by the law not to be able to do that. So we went back to buying the purchase here through this co-op for the police department, and it's in the budget.
That's my next question. Does this, by not purchasing this car, does this affect the utilization or the effectiveness of the police department?
Yes, sir. So the vehicle that the detective drives around, it's dead. It would be a technical term. I wouldn't drive it myself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
It only went up 1.5% last year. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins. Councilman Menko.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.
Reports from elected officials, Council President Revelinsky.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilman Collins.
No reports, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Menko.
I do have a few. So for the library, Wednesday, September 25th, drop-in play at 10:30 a.m. and an after-school snack and chat book club at 3 p.m. After-school Jeopardy on Thursday, September 26th at 3 p.m. Monday, September 30th, there's adult yoga at 9:15 a.m. and superhero bingo at 6:30 for families and adults. Come as your favorite superhero, or just feel free to be yourself. Wednesday, October 2nd, there'll be an after-school bingo at 3 p.m. Come crochet with Sam G on Saturday, October 5th at 11 a.m. Monday, October 7th, adult yoga at 9:15 a.m. and an Edgar Allan Poe presentation at 6:30 p.m. In the Halloween theme. Wednesday, October 9th, drop-in play at 10:30 a.m. and Minecraft games at 3:15. Thursday, October 10th, tween craft at 3 p.m. The library will be closed on Monday, October 14th. Tuesday, October 15th, AARP will have a presentation on smartphones. Excuse me. Please inquire at the library for registration on these events. The library will be having a table at Milltown Day on September 28th. The next library board meeting is Tuesday, October 8th at 6:30 p.m. and is always open to the public, mostly always. The library is doing a Halloween costume exchange, and they are accepting children's clean and gently used Halloween costumes until October 18th. On October 21st from 6 to 7 p.m., children are invited to come to the library and choose a costume to use on Halloween. And I think that's just a great service and thing for a lot of people, and a nice thing for them to plan. The library has a book and movie delivery service for limited mobility individuals. Please inquire by calling 732-247-2270. And the rec department, actually, I believe I don't have a rec department one tonight. No, I do not. That concludes my portion of the evening.
Thank you. Councilman Poznanski.
Sure. I only have the DPW to speak about tonight. They're having a shredding event. It'll be at the American Legion parking lot, JFK Drive, Saturday, October 12th, 2024, 8:30 to 11:30. And Milltown Day is this Saturday. The DPW will be represented there, and they ask that you stop by. They have freebies, meet the staff, and ask questions. And last is, I hope people have noticed on Highland Drive that it's beautiful. It's the milling and the paving it's been ahead of schedule. It started on the 18th, and it looks great. And Ralph told me there were 0 complaints. Actually, no, he told me there are a lot of complaints, and that's about it. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Councilman Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From the Milltown Police Department, residential security reminder. The Milltown Police Department is offering complimentary home security risk assessments to assist residents in enhancing the safety of their homes. Upon request, one of our community affairs officers will visit your residence, assess potential vulnerabilities, and provide recommendations for improving your home security. To schedule a risk assessment, please contact Lieutenant DiLorenzo via email at cdilorenzo@milltownpd.org. Community involvement is crucial in maintaining a more secure environment. We strongly encourage you to assist us by reporting any suspicious persons, vehicles, or incidents that you come across. The non-emergency number is 732-828-1100. In case of emergencies, always dial 911. Concerns can also be submitted by using the official borough website under the Report a Concern tab. Together, we can make our community a safer place. Thank you for your continued support, and please do not hesitate to reach out to the Milltown Police Department if you have any questions or concerns. And we look forward to seeing everybody at Milltown Day, along with the Milltown Fire Department and Rescue Squad. From the Milltown Fire Department, tickets are now available for the Endless Summer Clam Bake at the American Legion, taking place this Saturday, September 28th. Please note that a limited number of tickets will be sold. If you're interested in attending, kindly email mfdclambake@gmail.com to secure your tickets. And members are needed. Candidates that are interested in joining the Milltown Fire Department are encouraged to stop down by the firehouse on Monday evenings at 6:30 or email joinmilltownfire@gmail.com. And from the Milltown Rescue Squad, if anybody has any billing questions, please call our billing company directly. Please do not contact the Milltown Police Department with any billing or recruitment questions. And regarding recruitment, anyone who's interested in joining the Milltown Rescue Squad or becoming an EMT should contact us via email at recruit@milltownrescuesquad.org. To learn more, we're happy to answer any questions. From the Milltown 4th of July Committee, the Milltown 4th of July Committee looks forward to seeing everyone at Milltown Day this Saturday. Be sure to stop by our tent to meet the committee members and enter our free drawing for a chance to win a basket filled with 4th of July merchandise. And Mr. Mayor, I was following up on a comment made during our last meeting. I reached out to Chief Johnson to inquire about the 3 alleged pedestrian accidents. Chief Johnson confirmed that there have been no pedestrian accidents in crosswalks within the past 12 months. However, there was a bicyclist accident reported. All other suggested incidents were unfounded. We encourage all residents with concerns to continue to utilize the report of concern process, as each individual who submits a report will be contacted directly. And that concludes my reports.
Thank you. Councilman Zambrana.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our Environmental Commission meeting is this coming Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. via Zoom. Our Board of Health meeting is tomorrow, 6:30 in the conference room in the back. As you've heard several times tonight, Milltown Day is Saturday, September 28th, from 10 to 3 p.m. The Revitalization Committee welcomes all. Hope we have great weather. That's what it's looking like so far, to come out and join us all and have a great day. And then my last report here is from the Human Relations Committee. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, October 1st, at 7 p.m. via Zoom. I would be remiss to not mention, with a week left in September, September is National Suicide Prevention Month, as well as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Hispanic Heritage Month started on 9/15 and runs through October 15th. And World Alzheimer's Day was on September 21st. In October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, ADHD Awareness Month, and World Blindness Day is October 10th, 2024. And then, of course, later on, next week, Rosh Hashanah is on Wednesday the 2nd. Yom Kippur is on Friday, October 11th, the beginnings of both. And, of course, Columbus Day, which is also known as Indigenous Peoples Day, is October 14th. And that concludes my reports.
Thank you. Reports from professionals. Borough Attorney Peter Vignola.
No report tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Borough Engineers.
Very short report tonight, Mr. Mayor. We had a meeting with the Public Works Director today and your administrator. Discussion on Highland Drive. There is some remaining work after the paving's been done. Most of the concrete repairs, we've waited to get those done until the asphalt work is done, because we're going to need to possibly do detours. So that work will be scheduled for the month of October.
Thank you.
Mike, got a quick question. I believe we were supposed to have a meeting today, but it got moved. But we do have to meet to discuss about the money being used from the grant. How long
That's
do we
correct.
have to use that?
Well, I think that the projects must be awarded by spring of 2025, so the sooner the better with the meeting. I think that if you'd like, we take the lead and try to get scheduled.
All right. Fred, you try to make a... see if
Try
it's
again.
good. Yeah. Take two. Thanks.
So, real quick, Mayor, thank you to segue off Mike's conversation and for the council, mayor and council and the public. Part of our conversation today was the continuing issue with our noncompliance, if you will, or note of noncompliance on the trihalomethanes issue that I emailed the council a couple of weeks ago. We continue to move forward with that, with checking our data coming in from our samples coming in from Brunswick, our sampling data, if you will. But at the end of the day, we're required to notify the residents with a letter that I provided to council in draft form. That letter will be generally as I provided. And the differences being there'll be dates on it, the point of contact for the water system, those yellow blanks that you saw on it. But the meat of the letter is going to stay the way it is but we have sent the draft to DEP. They do require us to provide them the draft. Once they approve our draft, then we'll get it out to the residents to meet that statutory guideline required by them to get the public notice out. Just wanted to update you, and that's where we're at.
Thank you. Borough Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A reminder that our borough ordinance states that you must apply for a permit to hold a garage sale. Permits are handled by the clerk's office, and applications are available on the website as well as in the office in person. The fee is $5 cash or check only. Marriage license applications and are available by appointment only. Please be sure to have a ceremony date and officiant to marry you before you call to book your appointment. Notary services are offered free of charge in the clerk's office. We do ask that you try to schedule an appointment, but we'll make every attempt to squeeze walk-ins. Letters were sent to any members of boards, committees, commissions in the borough that have a term that is expiring at the end of 2024. If you haven't gotten that back to me and you are interested in serving again, please fill out the citizen leadership application and drop it off or email it to me. If you no longer want to serve, check the box that says I no longer want to serve and get that back to me. I'm looking to have them back around Thanksgiving so we can start preparation for reorganization. Those appointments are made at the reorganization meeting, which will be January 6, 2025. So if there's any resident that's not currently on a board or committee and is interested in volunteering, fill an application, get it to my office. The general election is coming up Tuesday, November 5th. Polls are open 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Mail-in ballots have been sent out by the county clerk's office, and the ballot box in front of the police department is now open. Early voting is October 26th through November 3rd. The list of early voting polling locations within our county is on the clerk's page on the borough website. October 15th is the deadline to register to vote, and October 29th is the deadline to apply for a mail-in ballot. All of those applications are available on our website as well as in the hallway in front of the clerk's office. As far as planning board, the next meeting is October 2nd at 7 p.m. The Christopher Street application, which drew a lot of interest in the town, has been withdrawn, but there's another application on for that meeting. And one more thing, court is currently a shared service and has off hours than our usual borough hall hours. The municipal clerk's office cannot take ticket payments or help with court matters. We are the municipal clerk, not the court clerk. Their extension is 121, and their hours are posted on the window. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any old business to bring before council?
Yes, unless someone else does.
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to speak about the Schwinman property. In regards to the yet-to-be-determined plans for the Schwinman property, I have an idea, it's just me, that may please some residents and anger others. Council is the final arbiter of the disposition of the site. Some groups in town have a voice in this matter, some an advisory voice, many have a loud voice. Council members, doing their own due diligence, will decide the fate of the cabin and property respectfully. Some residents are saying that the council has misused the grant money, saying there should be an investigation. The grant is a reimbursement grant. When money is spent, we are reimbursed, such as the architect assessment of the structure. Thus, we hold no grant money, the county does. My plan is to sell the Schwinneman cabin back to the family for $1. They can move the cabin to their property on Main Street, which is a large property, behind the old taxidermy studio. There's plenty of room for the cabin on site where family, friends, and supporters can donate time, labor, and financial assistance to get the cabin into fine shape and transform it into a nature center and town focus if that is their desire. They can create a foundation to solicit funding. They can host fundraisers, have schools and special interest groups pay or donate for maintenance and upkeep. The land itself can be cleaned up, trails formed, wildflowers grown, trees, etc. Even possibly becoming an extension of Albert Avenue Park. My point here is to have ideas, a broad spectrum of thoughts. When people work together, we can achieve great things.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. McDowell, I had a question about Christopher Street. Now that we can talk about it now, or because we couldn't talk about it because it's a pending application?
Well, you could, you can talk about Christopher Street as a paper street, but I don't know what your question is, Councilman.
No, I mean, there was some, when I was on the Environmental Commission, they were talking about seeing if we could do something with Green Acres for some of that area, so.
It just depends. I mean, you have a paper street, I believe, which is Christopher Street.
Right.
So it is a street. If you don't want to allow it to be improved, you would vacate that street. At the point where you vacate that street, it would revert back to the property from which it was created.
Adjacent property owners.
Exactly. One or more of the adjacent property owners, depending on how it was whacked up to create that street. If you were so inclined to acquire it, you would need to have the property appraised but, you know, there's a number of steps involved there.
So, but we can't talk about it now, at least.
You can certainly talk about.
Because you said we couldn't talk about it while there's a pending application.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about vacating a street that someone was relying on in connection with an application.
Right. So now we can talk about Green Acres.
You can certainly talk about trying to pursue Green Acres funding for it, but although you would need to create a subdivision in order to have the property available, because once it reverts back to those property owners, that's where it would be.
I see. Thank you.
You got it.
Like to close all business. New business. Does any member of council have any new business to bring before council?
I had a question for Monica. Is there going to be a townwide garage sale in October?
We don't have a borough-sponsored townwide garage sale. I believe on one of the Facebook groups, they do an unofficial one, as long as you apply to the clerk's office for a permit, but that has nothing to do with the borough.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'd like to close new business. Open to the public. The public comment portion of our meeting is to allow the public to bring to the council's attention their concerns or comments. The council will respect the public's time by refraining from any comment until the speaker is finished. It should be further noted that the public comment portion of our meeting is not structured as a question and answer session. Please state your name and address for the record when you come to the podium. Just as a reminder that under the rules of council, individuals wishing to speak during the public input part of the meeting shall be limited to 5 minutes and may, after others speakers have finished, be allowed to speak for a second 5-minute period. Go ahead, Joe.
Joe Piatanza, 15 Bruce Court. I'll be brief, I know it's late. I was just calculating, because we talk about, I'm talking about the water and sewer again, sorry. We talk about the COVID money, the $300,000. So if we raised the base 30% instead of 71%, and kept the ordinance as it was, because generally it is a good ordinance. I like many factors of it. That increase, the 30% increase, generates about more than $500,000 a year. So that is well above
the COVID money, and, I just, I came up before and said I didn't like the 71%, so 30%, I think would more than do it, and it would give, if there's a water main break or what have you, it'd give you some wiggle room to address those things. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John McMenamin, 30 Highland. First of all, thank you for dealing with Highland Drive. That's been a disaster for a long time. Ordinance 241549 didn't make the list tonight, but I wanted to speak about it anyway. And that's the one we're going to prohibit the parking at the ends of certain streets. I can't speak to all of them. I live at the corner of Garver and Highland. Garver is a disaster. My daughter's almost got killed once, and it's scary. Thank you for looking into it. My concern is those cars that are parked by Main Street are going to park somewhere, and all they're going to do is move further down Garver Avenue. And then we'll be saying, well, we're going to have to prohibit parking at the corner of Garver and Highland, and then they're going to go on Highland Drive, and we're going to have to, I feel like we're chasing our tail, and I recognize that what you guys are doing here is at least a step in the right direction. Maybe at some point we need to look at parking permits.
Thank you.
And I haven't been to a council meeting since I filmed them with Russ 20 years ago. So I don't know who might have suggested what, but maybe we could at least keep that in the back of our heads. What we're doing is a great start, because that corner getting out in the morning on Main Street is bad. Whoever looked at it, thank you. But just something to keep in the back of our heads moving forward.
So John, just to let you know, the chief and I did go around last week, and Garver was one. There were 14 items on that list.
Yeah, there's a big
right.
list.
Out of the 14, 4, the chief said is a public safety issue, and Garver was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we didn't see it on the list here, but the mayor and Council President Revelinsky and we're in the Public Safety Committee. We're going to look into it, but just to let you know that Garver was one of the issues that the chief did agree to.
Yeah, I saw it on the list there, and I mean, we made it 3 times, and that street is like from here to the wall.
And what was suggested is all up and down Main Street, all those side streets get signed and yellow line for the 25 feet to see where the issues are, and then then take it from there. So because a lot of them don't have it, and a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, no, and it's scary. When cars are turning off of Main Street, it is scary. So thank you guys for looking at it, and appreciate it.
I agree with you 100% on the parking permits.
I don't know how we're going to get around that, honestly, because all the cars are going to do is move, and we're just going to keep chasing.
Just shuffling them around. Yep.
But there's professionals that hopefully know more than I do.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Lee Weisenberger, 99 JFK Drive. This might be out of a little sequence here. I'm guessing what might happen tonight, but any update on Fort Avenue?
Yes. Did you want detail on that update, or just? Yes, the court case was finally heard, and they came to a determination on the value. However, the next step in the process is that both the developer and the county have to agree with that valuation, deposit the monies so that the property can be taken. The borough gets its money. The remainder, or the balance, then goes to the landowner, and development can begin. We don't know yet if the county or the developer have agreed with the court's determination. But at least we've got, after 20 years, we've got a value on the property. So, something to be happy for.
The court case, the date that was finalized then, the judgment that when it was made?
Is it?
About a week ago?
Is
Well,
it
the bid
finalized?
hasn't
Did
been
he
entered yet,
issue
but
the?
the jury has rendered an opinion as evaluation. There are still proceedings ongoing.
Right, so there'll be probably an appeal, or not appeal, there's so many days for an appeal.
Yeah. We're going to find out more with some of
Okay,
the,
that's what I said.
well, what
So-
we have going on after the meeting.
Right, that's what, we'll be able to ask questions later too.
No, at the next meeting.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, I will close the public portion of the meeting. Council comments. Is there anyone on council that would like to bring up at this time?
I've got one. Clearly disappointed that it didn't pass tonight. You know, we came up with a plan, we talked about it, the concept. At meetings, no one sat here and objected, and I mean in the finance meetings. No one commented on the other things. And I think what happened was when they saw what the operating budget is and the costs, everyone just suddenly shriveled. Is what it is. Eager to see what happens next. Hopefully it changes the way we do business, because I remember someone once said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And if we don't change the way we plan and we budget for the water system, for example, increasing it 30% sounds great. You increase 30%, people use less water, the revenue's not there, your profit's not there, you're back to square one. So, that's all I got. Good luck.
I'd like to speak about that also. I did fight with myself, Councilman Revelinsky, over this, because I asked for a meeting with Joe Zenga, which I did receive, and I asked for 5 years' worth of water bills broken down quarterly. I looked at everything, and I asked him, please make me understand this. I said, I'm going to have to vote on this. And I'm also liaison to the senior center, and I speak to those people, and John Collins was with me last week, and they had their monthly meeting. There were 50, 60 people, and the President, Bob Skarzinski, wanted us to speak when John and I did. And those people are very scared. So I have, on the one hand, I appreciate the ordinance that Councilman Revelinsky presented. I really do appreciate it. I see a lot of good in it. It just scares me for the seniors, which is the fight that I had with myself, because I have to talk to those people. Some of them came up to me, I've said it before, and I wish they didn't. They'll tell me how much they bring in a month, and it's scary, because they'll say that they have to forego some things, important things, just to pay some of their bills, and that's what weighs in my mind when I vote here. And that's what I have to say about that. Just one more thing. Talking about Ford Avenue, I contacted the new chairman of the Ford Avenue Redevelopment Agency, Kevin McGowan, and I respectfully asked if he could attend a council meeting, introduce himself, and speak about his new mission. He countered asking if I would like to have a cup of coffee with him, and I thought that was fair to me, and I look forward to meeting him. If one or two councilmen would like to join us, please contact me. And the number one question I get in town is what is happening with Ford Avenue, and as of now, substantial movement seems afoot, but we'll see.
Just for the record, Councilman, he's the executive director, he's not the chairman. The chairman would be somebody's, just.
All right, I misspoke.
No,
Thank you.
it's okay. It's a lot of different titles. I just wanted to make sure we were clear for the record.
Okay, thank you.
I share the same sentiments as Councilman Poznanski, and, you know, setting up here, you also have to take into account the public feedback of what you're doing, because, you know, you don't understand if you pass something and people are going to be hurt, like we heard at the senior center with some of these bills, that it would be, you know, not responsible not to listen to the public as a you know, as a councilman, that we have to listen to the constituents. And, I mean, I heard from one lady, and she said, my friend Rich is raising my water bill. I mean, I had to tiptoe around that one. So I would say, you know, we do want to listen to the people, and we are, you know, empathetic with the seniors in this town. And I don't see a problem with continuing the tiered system, because it's always worked in the past, and, you know, somebody throwing out an idea that, well, the people won't use any water if we raise the price, but people are gonna use the water anyway. I mean, that can afford it, they're gonna water their lawns like Councilman Potter and Councilman Rowlinski, you're gonna water your lawn, you know, so, well, maybe not. You don't have to water, like I said, you don't have to turn that hose on, Rich, you know, it's your decision. But we do want to appear empathetic to the public and also to the seniors in this town, and that's all I have to say.
If I may, I think using the word system works is, I just can't agree with that one, but unless we all agree just to use the same amount of water, we're never going to be able to figure out something that's just completely fair. And in all reality, Councilman Revolinsky raising their rates? No. Are we raising their rates? No. Inflation, the age of our system, the required maintenance of it, all of these things are a perfect storm that raises our rates. The math gets harder to see because they fill, you know, gaps were filled in using COVID money. And with that, what, you know, we say 30%, 20%, you know, we're pulling numbers out. That's why I like the system of this is what it costs to run it. And let's divide that equally. I get that that is a jump. The part that is hard to see in this, and I don't quite know what it is either, is that if we did the tiered system, if we did the old system and just raised the rates accordingly, there was still going to be a jump. So does the new way cost us any more? I don't think so, because at the end of this, we are at some point paying the same bill. I think we're just, as far as I can see it, the bill is the bill is the bill. So whether we're going to have to raise the per gallon rate and see how that works out, and at the end of the year, like this year, come up with another, by the way, here's an extra bill. Either way, I think that's just inconvenient to people, whether it's a fixed, I mean, I have a fixed income as well, except I could go possibly work another job. But, you know, I like to see my kids, my daughter, my wife once in a while. I mean, like, so it's a commonality of problem, is that it just goes up every single year. The battery thing that we're talking about for the electric is the happiest thing that I can ever think of, that we're gonna vote on something that could really do things that are great and offset, you know, what's coming. It's getting out in front of something. And it's just hard in this town that the water system, getting out in front of that, it's gonna require some suffering. And, you know, we all live here, us too. And I know for some people, it hits harder. You know, I wish there's more we can do about it. It's just what it is sometimes. Sad. Wish we could do better. I'm done.
All right, I'd like to close council comments. My comments, yes, I'm glad that actually everyone agreed for the battery project as well, Councilman Manco. I would like to thank the Director of the Utilities and the CFO for running all the numbers multiple times, multiple different ways for council members, myself, CFO. Everybody was running the numbers to try to come up with a possible solution. So I want to thank them for that. Will the clerk please read Resolution 2024-270?
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, Public Law 1975, Chapter 231 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the governing body wishes to discuss litigation, and whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires that confidentiality, then the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be resolved by the Borough Council of the Borough of Middletown, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, that the public be excluded from this meeting.
You have heard the reading of this resolution. Are there any questions? May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Potter, seconded by Councilman Collins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Council President Revelinsky.
Aye.
Councilman Collins.
Aye.
Councilman Manco.
Aye.
Councilman Poznanski.
Aye.
Councilman Potter.
Aye.
Councilman Zambrana.
Aye.